is Pat O'Brien. I'm about as anonymous as I don't know, Patty's Pig, so it doesn't matter. I always start everything backward. Generally, we have the announcements at the end. I'd like to make them at the beginning. We have a guest book here, which Shirley has, and which a number of you have signed, and this guest book will be mailed to Lois, Bill's wife. And in the front, after the program is over and we know who has spoken, we'll put all of this pasted in the front of the program. And then in the back, we'll put that editorial that was in the Morning Advocate and some other clippings. Now, anyone that would want a copy of that editorial from the Morning Advocate, if you'd put your name on here, I'll get some. Frank, would you might run some off on the state state project. The editorial and possibly any other items that we have. If you want them, if you'd write your name on here, we'll see that you get them. This meeting is being taped, so I'm going to call on everyone by their first name, or in one case by the last name. And then if you want to put your right name, your full name on the tape, go ahead and do it. But I'll just use the first name. At the end of the meeting, we're going to have a collection. Of course, there's no dues or fees in AA, but it was suggested that anyone that wanted to send flowers, it would be a little ridiculous. Bill was already buried. But any fund that is sent in will go into a memorial fund, which the use of which will be selected by the not the General Service Board, the trustees. And they will do according to whatever Bill has said should be done with this money. That's at the end, that will come. One other thing about smoking. It's real tough in here when we have a whole crowd, although the ventilating system is working. I was going to suggest that we just kind of slow down on it a little. It bothers some people like me. But somebody told me, just tell them don't smoke, Leonard. Don't smoke. But let's say smoke as little as possible. So much for announcements. This meeting, I want to welcome everybody who is here from all the groups around Baton Rouge. This is a special meeting to be in the form of a memorial service to Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, who died of pneumonia January 24th at the Miami Heart Institute, Miami Beach. He was 75 years old. He's been buried in their family plot at East Dorset, Vermont. Now this day, today, Sunday, February 14th, was set aside for AA members throughout the world to hold such services as they see fit, small or big, so that we who feel so great a debt to Bill may share our grief and express our gratitude for his having lived, and to rededicate ourselves to continuing the task he began 35 years ago. The letter says completing the task. I don't think there's any such thing. I don't think we'll ever complete the task. Continuing the task. Now, the format of the meeting we will have a little bit different from usual, and the first thing will be to have, we'll have three things. If you will stand, Father O'Dwyer will say a special invocation, and then we'll have, we'll have a moment of silence while Father is coming up here to say the invocation. And then we'll have the Serenity Prayer. Who is John here? John S.? He's not here. Lucy, would you lead us in the Serenity Prayer? Yeah. Okay. Father, will everyone rise for a moment? moment of silent prayer.
In the words of Bill's own gift to us, the AA way of life, this phrase, grant us this evening and always the light of God's reality, the nourishment of His strength, and the atmosphere of His grace. Then we invoke our higher power to fill our minds with understanding, our hearts with love, and our wills with acceptance. Yes, help each of us down the path of happy sobriety. And finally, in the true spirit of our AA fellowship, we say, may his soul be blessed with everlasting serenity. Amen.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the preamble we'll have read by Lib S. from the Zachary group. Lib.
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Lib. I've often thought that the essence of AA is in the preamble and that we don't really have to go any further, but we will continue for about an hour. Roy L. We have the 5th chapter. Roy L. of the, I would say, the East Baton Rouge group. But Roy belongs to all the groups in Baton Rouge. He attends all of the meetings, and he is a great AA. And this is the 5th chapter of a portion of the 5th chapter of AA, which is the essence of the program. Roy?
Thank you, Pat. My name is Roy. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Roy.
It's sure good to see this crowd, I'll tell you, if it'd be like this all the time. For those of you who are not familiar with the program, for the members who haven't decided how they got sober, the first 100 people that got sober and remained sober got together and wrote a book. And in this book, they told us how they got sober and what they did to maintain their sobriety. And this first portion of the 5th chapter of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous outlines exactly what we did to get our sobriety. And it's entitled How It Works. And it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually, men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you've decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we couldn't. So with all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember, we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it's too much for us. But there is one who has all power. And that one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps that we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, and made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves and admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Then we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all, and made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others, and continued to take a personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, and sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in our everyday lives. Many of us exclaim, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Don't be discouraged. Not one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We aren't saints. The point is, we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. One, that we were alcoholic and couldn't manage our own lives. And two, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And three, that God could and would if he were sought.
As I said earlier, you selected a lousy chairman. I think I forgot to thank Father O'Dwyer for his invocation. I think I forgot to thank Lib. And now I am thanking you and also Roy for your part in this program. I am probably the most unorthodox person around, so I don't want to change. My leopard doesn't change his spots. This is about the worst place to do this, but I'm going to do it now. We have tonight some people, old timers. Father Marino, would you stand, Father? Father is not an alcoholic. He is a Catholic priest came up here from St. Gabriel to this meeting. Father, you see, of all the letters that were sent out, I always have to get in a sour note. But isn't this great that he came? And he goes back to 25 years ago. He used to do 12-step with us, work with us, and some of the toughest kind, too. And he's really great. And if you want to help us, we'll be still calling on you. Okay? Also, we have Rabbi Reznikov, who's the president of the Ministerial Association, and we'll hear from him later, but I'd like him to stand now. And although he has not done 12-step, you may have done some I don't know about. But he has been on the board of a couple of organizations here in town that deal with alcoholics, the Clinic, Baton Rouge Area Council, rather, and Recovery House. And he has sweated through what any of you that know these organizations have to sweat through. He has sweated through this, and he didn't have to do it. This was of his own free will. There's somebody else here, old-timer that... Yeah, but he's going to be on the thing later. Oh, Frank. We have here Frank Blackburn, who heads up the Division of Alcoholism of the State Department of Hospitals. Frank, you want to stand? And we have Gene Snellings, who's Executive Director of the Baton Rouge Area Council on Alcoholism. Gene. Now, Yusef, I didn't tell you I was going to put you on first, but as you walk up here, I'll be introducing you. I haven't, as chairman, I represent the oldest group. I don't know whether I'm the oldest man, but he represents the second oldest group in Baton Rouge, which is the North Baton Rouge group. And he knows, I guess, that he's a substitute for a substitute for a substitute speaker. Yeah. This is a great man. He had 18 years of sobriety, and he is still in there pitching. And this is a man I really love. Yusef S.
Yusef Suye, and I am definitely an alcoholic. And I feel honored tonight to be able to speak and represent my group. I'm a member of the North Baton Rouge group and a citizen of the city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm delighted to see a nice group gathered here tonight to honor the memorial service for our great friend, the co-founder of AA, Bill Wilson. I love the man. I've been in AA since 1947, when I first heard the name of Bill Wilson, co-founder. And I believe that this program is divinely inspired. When you read the 12th suggested step that we have heard Roy that read it so very well for us tonight. I'm very grateful for Bill Wilson, because hadn't it been for AA, I would have died, back even as far back as 1947. The doctors told me I would have died if I didn't quit drinking. I didn't know how to do it. There's some in the audience tonight knows just how it was with me, and took me even to my first meeting. So I'm very thankful for AA, thankful for Bill, because I believe without him to start, him and his co-founder, Dr. Bob, to start this program, if we call it a program, or it's not an organization, I don't know why, I don't think it can exist without being organized, but they say there's no organization in AA. But I'm glad it's there anyway. And so I'm so very grateful, and I regret Bill very, very much. There's no one else to take his place, but we have some good AA members left. I know a lot of sobriety that that has been achieved through this medium of AA, friends and relatives with many, many years, 20, 10, 15, 1, 2, 3, so on. I myself have about 20 years of sobriety altogether. I had almost 18 years consecutively. Then I had the misfortune of having to slip. I have no time to go into that tonight. But I'm back in AA, done it before, I can do it again. I mean, it can do it for me again. There's nothing impossible with God. In that 5th chapter of the book, it said, God, you better find him now, and I think so too. But this is the place to find him, because the 12th step consistently refers to God. And what man is unable to do, God is able. Nothing impossible with God. We're so glad to have a program that I really believe was divinely inspired. We have such men as the deceased Brother Bill that we are honoring tonight in this memorial. I thank you.
Oh, such simplicity. You, Seb, I like that. If I could say that much in a few words, it would really make me happy. This man I'm going to call on now, I don't know whether he knows he was going to be called on this early in the program. Bill, if you start walking up here, I don't know a lot about this man except this. That we're going from the oldest AA to the newest AA, and this man's name is Bill. Is it all right to say your whole name?
Call it.
His name is Bill Wilson. How about that? And Bill, I don't know. They tell me that you can talk as long as me, and I haven't even acknowledged I'm an alcoholic yet, but I'll do that and tell my life story later. This is, you'll have to keep it down, though. Okay. This is Bill Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The South Baton Rouge Group.
AA Group. My name is Bill Wilson, and I am definitely a drunk. And by the grace of God and the people like you and many, many others, I haven't found the need for a drink 4 days, 10 months, and 5 years ago. And this is by when I first started learning how to stay sober. And as Mr. Yusef said, it is a God-inspired thing, because this higher power, I feel, gave Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson the wisdom and the knowledge and the courage and the stamina to put this thing together with the other 100 drunks that they brought together to bring it up to this point of the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. I call it a 24-step program. I learned to love my fellow man in the traditions. I learned to stay sober in the first 12 principles. I learned to love my fellow man in the traditions. And the 12th tradition tells us this: anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles above personality. This is how I learned to love you people. And by the anonymity there, it means that you work these things quietly within yourself. You do a good deed and you keep it within yourself and to God. You look for no reward. And for this I have learnt by praying in my own meager way. I have grown spiritually, as they said, but I am not a Christian. But others do go on and attain Christianity and even ministry. I've seen this happen. So you can see that this is an inspired thing from a higher power. And after I came to step 3 and fought it for a great deal of months or 24 hours at a time, trying to stay away from a drink, I knew that I would finally have to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as it asked me to, or I would get drunk again. And as they read it in the steps here and in the first part of the 5th chapter, that half measures avail us nothing
we have to take it all. We can take it in context for momentarily, but only in cliches for quick reminders. And by doing this, we will be ready to fight this compulsion. And as I say again, I can get to talking and praising this program, and I can't talk too long. I'm not here mournful tonight because Bill Wilson is dead. Bill Wilson is not dead, neither is Dr. Bob, or neither are the 100 drunks, because we are here tonight and we're all alive. They will never die, and I cannot identify with these people because my name is Bill Wilson. The only way I can identify with this Bill Wilson was the fact is that he was a drunk, and so am I. And I know that tonight. And it's beautiful to see all of you here too, to be able to get together and share our experiences and our strength and our hope with one another so that we may solve our common problem and carry the message to the other suffering alcoholics. Thank you.
Fred, is it a little early to call on you? From St. Francisville, we have Fred. Wait a second, Fred. Bill, thanks very much for a good, solid message in a very few minutes. Fred, this next gentleman, I don't know well, but I think he has a long period of sobriety. Goes way back to the early days of St. Francisville group. It's one of the oldest of the new groups. How's that? Fred M., please.
Thank you, Pat. My name is Fred, and I am definitely an alcoholic. By the grace of God and with the help of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm sober tonight. I have been since June 3rd, 1966. For that, I'm humbly grateful. I'm so proud to see such a crowd gathered here tonight to pay homage to Bill, Debbie, whom without his program, without his book and his works, tonight I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't be standing here. And the most thing, about the only thing I can say is that I am grateful for the program. It is a God-inspired program. And without the help of this program, as I said, tonight I would probably be dead myself. So it was through this program, I see people here that helped me, brought me in, helped bring me into this program that I love and cherish so much. And I just want to say that I'm very grateful and thankful for the program and for Bill, Debbie, who has passed on. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Before this next speaker speaks, I'd like to say something. First, I told him that he could have 10 minutes and that he had the most important part on the program. And he said, I bet you're going to tell that to Mabel, too. And I said, that's exactly right. And I guess I told you had the most important part. And I didn't know I was so full of bull. I thought I was a real frank person. Beware of these people, these country boy frank people. I'm not a country boy, but these are the type of things that I say. But before I introduce Bill, I'd like to say, at our church today, the theme, the chief lesson of the liturgy is that the Lord is man's only refuge and hope. And I think every talk we've had so far has said that. In him we should place our confidence rather than in men. Now this means rather than in men who are worldly. The good man who loves and serves God is like the tree planted near the water's edge. He enjoys a full life and bears a rich fruit in good works because his own life is guided by the Holy Spirit. And Bill's, the keynote, I think, we had this in the prayers to the faithful at our church today. We said this, and I happened to be at one of the masses and said this. For Bill Wilson, founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, a man who in his distress discovered the necessity of absolute dependence on the will of God and received the gift of helping others achieve sobriety and lead a new life in the love and service of God. We say, let us pray to the Lord. The congregation answered, Lord, hear our prayer. And this really is the theme of what Bill, and I said to Bill tonight, I hope you have a good 10-minute outline of Bill Wilson's life. And he said, that isn't what you told me to do. You told me to give the things that Bill didn't do. And he said, that's what I have to give. So all of this ties right in with God's will. This man represents the fellowship group, which meets every Monday night in a kind of a round table, round circle discussion group at the Methodist Church at the university. He achieved a PhD degree at, I don't know exactly the age, somewhere between 50 and 60. The thing I hate about him worst is he's so damn good looking and beautiful gray hair, and all the girls just come up and kiss him like they really wanted to. They just peck me. Bill, come on.
My name is Bill Elvin. I am an alcoholic. By the grace of God, Bill Wilson and the fellows he has left behind, I haven't had desire for drink in quite some time. I guess I should sit down because Pat just played hell with my ego. No, actually, Bill Wilson, we say, is the co-founder of AA. And by reminiscing or going through his life, we find that he has had one terrible struggle. Bill was definitely an alcoholic. By his own admission, he was quite some drunk. Got to where he needed the 2/5 of gin a day, plus what else he could hide around the place. He, like a lot of us, had his wife work and support him. He, like a lot of us, had his in-laws support him and his wife. But, unlike a lot of us, all through his writings, you find that Bill did not have any rancor. He did not have any dislike for these non-drinkers, these non-alcoholics. A great many of us have blamed the families on us being alcoholics. At no time in any place could I find that Bill blamed them for this condition. Too often, we, as alcoholics, claim, well, the doctors couldn't do us any good and the psychiatrists couldn't do us any good. Bill Wilson, throughout his writings, has given great credit to the doctors who have tried to help him and those who have helped him. He gave great credit to Dr. Thibault and some other psychiatrists who helped him and helped others. His was a struggle which is hard to conceive when we think of just getting sober. Bill drank for a number of years after World War I, where he went in as an artillery officer and learned to drink. He came out and found out that he could be a big man with the bottle. He must have had a tremendous amount of ability. He was a sort of self-made analyst on Wall Street. He had studied some law, and he liked the dickering on Wall Street. And when they wouldn't accept him at the salary he wanted, he got in his old car and he went around the country analyzing different companies with their shortcomings and their good qualities, and went back and was able to sell this information on Wall Street and establish himself as an analyst. And the money started coming in, and so did the drinking, because he liked this picture he had of himself. And he liked the country club, and he played a lot of golf, and he lived at the country club quite often. He was living high, and it took him a long time
as it has with a lot of us, to see himself as he actually was, rather than as he thought they saw him. And that was a big thing. Because of this, I believe, Bill, in his own writing, said that he knew that there was a supreme power. He didn't believe, like some of his friends, that there was not a God or some supreme power. He said things were too well regulated in the universe. There must have been some commanding hand over all of this. But he could not accept a God that could take him from drink. For a long time, he could, like a lot of us, could not see that he was an alcoholic. And when he did see that he was an alcoholic, like a lot of us, everybody else had seen it first. And he wanted to quit. And he tried to quit several times. And he thought he had achieved it several times. And found out later that he, like a lot of us, had an obsession for the bottle. And his good friend, the doctor, said that perhaps it was his physical allergy with the obsession of the mind which made an alcoholic. And Bill found that he could not do this alone. And he didn't know what to do. And he was at home one time with a bottle that he was trying to hide, trying to nurse along because his wife was away working. And one of his old friends, Bill had even gone to what so-called Oxford groups, trying to sober up. But the urge somewhere was not there. He had not been able to achieve what he wanted, total sobriety. The desire never came about. And this old friend of his came over, and Bill said, well, he in his own writings, he said he kind of, in a way, he hated for him to come over because he would have to share his gin with him. But when his friend came, his friend was sober and looked real well. And Bill offered him a drink, and he said no, he didn't drink anymore. And Bill asked him what happened. And he said, I found God. By the name of Ebby, I believe it was. He had found God. And that's when Bill said, well, he didn't believe that God could do this to him. He didn't believe that this God could help him. And his friend talked to him a long time. And finally told him, he says, Bill, he says, find a God of your own choosing, a God that you can believe in, a God that you can trust, a God that you can put your faith in, and work with him, because you must have strength, and you have to have his spiritual strength. And Bill got on it probably his last good drunk. And somewhere in that hospital, 1934, I believe it was, 34, about November 34, June 34. He said he was praying for all his might for somebody to help him, for his God to help him get out of this misery he was in. And he saw a light, a revelation you might call it, in the room. And he thought he had a spiritual awakening. And it sort of frightened him. And he called Dr. Silkhouse over and told him what had happened. And he wondered if he had lost his mind. And Dr. Silkhouse told him no, that quite often in the literature people have had these spiritual awakenings. And Bill accepted this. He accepted it. And as we look at it now, as I look at it, because the only way I can translate particles of Bill's life in this little time is to relate it to mine as I have followed on his experiences. Because as our Bill said, we have to go on these experiences and strengths and hopes. And to me, this revelation he had was his approach to truth. This was the approach he had to seeing himself as a man who was helpless in the throes of alcoholism, and a man who had been unable to do it by himself. As much as he wanted to quit, he had never been able to do it by himself. And this was the thing that could help him, this God. And he had arrived at truth. He had accepted. He had come to the acceptance of his state and his condition as people saw him and not as he saw himself. And he was willing to go to any lengths at this time. He had become honest at this time. He had become accepting at this time that he needed help, and he was willing to take this help. And he was willing to sit down and talk to this God that he had found. And he did not hurry into big deals anymore. And he was willing to do these things. And he found that he had not completely lost the urge for this drinking. You see, he had been given this gift, this revelation, but he still had an urge to drink. And then he asked for help. What am I going to do? And somewhere in this, he developed the idea that he could help somebody else who had the same problem he had. And this probably was the beginning of our AA system of helping another drunk. Because in the biological systems, we have to have escape valves. We breathe in oxygen to carry off spent energy. We have a mouth to use spent steam. And when a man tries to hold everything within, he's going to blow up. The psychiatrist said everybody will reach a breaking point. And Bill's breaking point would have been reached had he not unloaded on other alcoholics. And he started going to the hospitals and picking up these alcoholics and telling them about his revelation. And it was helping him, but it wasn't helping the bloody alcoholics. Because how many times have we heard it in this room? If you say the word God, he's going to get up and walk out. And Dr. Silkhouse, this non-alcoholic, said, Bill, tell them the truth. Tell them your experiences. Tell them about when you were drunk, when you couldn't come off of it. Don't preach to them. Tell them as it is. And he went to Akron on a business trip. He started going back into business. And fortunately, he had a little business in Akron. And he says he walked into a bar and he had an urge for a drink, and there was a telephone, and he went to the telephone and he tried to locate somebody in the Oxford group and see if they could connect him with another alcoholic. And he got in contact with some woman who said she was not an alcoholic, but a dear friend of theirs. Pat, I haven't even looked at the time. Kick me in the shins when it's time. She said, a friend of ours, Dr. Bob, needs help bad. He's a terrific alcoholic, and he's a wonderful surgeon. Maybe you could talk to him. And he went to see Dr. Bob, and he talked to him and told him about his experiences. And Dr. Bob was impressed because here was a man who had the same feeling he had and the same desire. And Dr. Bob's wife was interested. And Dr. Bob sobered up, I think, that weekend. They got him sober. Bill stayed with him. Because in those times, we didn't have tranquilizers. They say that back in those days, a good AA man had to stand on somebody's chest until he quit shaking and hold him down until he could do without that drink, or give him a little drink to keep him from going to DTs. And he stood with Dr. Bob, and they got him sober for a while, and Dr. Bob made a trip. And when he came back, he was pretty drunk. That was in November 35, and that was Dr. Bob's last drink. And that meeting of these two people, Dr. Bob and Bill, was the beginning of AA. Because that's when the two people sober from these thoughts of helping each other. Now, this right and long in here is the essence of this whole program, why we owe so much to this man, because they, from then on, devoted, you might say, their entire lives. Dr. Bob's business had dropped because nobody wanted them to operate on him anymore because he was an alcoholic and they was afraid he might be drunk when he shoved a knife in him. Bill did as little work as he could on Wall Street to get a few dollars. His wife had inherited their home from her mother. Dr. Bob and his wife started taking in drunks. Bill had a little work in Akron, and they started taking in drunks in Dr. Bob's house, taking care of them, and they started sobering up people. And that was probably the first of the groups of alcoholism. And Bill had to go back to New York, and he organized a group in the hospital there. Now, this was the time they had the urge to be evangelists, to go out and spread the word. And this was the time when Bill and Bob had to temper each other's ambition in this field. Bob, I think, was more reluctant about going head over heels, but Bill wanted to do these things. But he had learned to accept the things he could do and do the things he could. And he was able to realize that he couldn't go out and be an evangelist all over the country. He couldn't send out people, workers, social workers, straightening out alcoholics. He found out that he couldn't build all these hospitals and so forth. But he began to work on these things, and you find in the literature that most of his friends he was connecting along these planning stages were non-alcoholics. Were non-alcoholics who became interested in this program, psychiatrists, businessmen, doctors, and whatnot. And it was in this instance that Bob got hold of Sister Ignatia, I believe it was, the St. Thomas Hospital, St. Thomas Hospital in Akron, with the idea, now why can't the hospitals take care of the drunks? And Dr. Bob said, I'm coming over with a drunk, and he got there, and she said, well, all the beds are full, but she said, we're going to see what we can do, and she snuck them into the flower room. They put them in a room where they kept flowers. That was the first drunk. And I think over the next 10 years period from that beginning, in that hospital, they treated something like 5,000 drunks, something had never been done before. This was the breaking of the link, one of the breaks into the medical world. We are sick people. And then Dr. Silkhauser and others went before meetings and said, this is a disease. This was the beginning. Dr. Thibault before the Psychiatrist Society had Dr. Bill talk. These were the beginnings of the acceptance of alcoholism as a disease. It gave men a little more pride in their work to try and straighten out. I'm a sick individual and I need help. And we find through these things, just like he found in the study he made at Jackson some years ago, that if we have loved ones to go back to, it is easier. It's a significant difference in those that can recuperate if they have loved ones to go back to. And Bill never forgot that. He always in his writings gave credit to his wife, to his in-laws who kept him until they died, and to his brother-in-law who was a doctor and was a great help throughout all of this movement. He did not give up on non-alcoholics. He did not say doctors couldn't help him. He did not say psychiatrists couldn't help him. He did, for a while, said, you can't do anything if you stay too anonymous. You got to get out and be known. And then about this time, up between the radio and the TV coming in and whatnot, people were getting sober for a little while and beginning to enjoy it. And he recognized that we had to have anonymity because of egocentricity that's incorporated in most of us. We get sober and begin to like what we're doing, you see. And if you can get your name on radio, I am an AA man and I haven't had a drink in 3 years, and so on and so on. He said, it's not so much to protect, the movement is to protect the individual so that his own ego will not drive him back to drink again. He will not take so much pride in his accomplishment. Somewhere you have to be able to do these things, as was mentioned earlier tonight, without credit. You had to be able to believe in God when you was not in church. You had to be able to make these 12-step calls at any hour of the day and night. These were the things he found that kept people sober. These were the things that he accomplished in this book when they needed money bad. And this book, the West Publishing Company, was established because he didn't want outsiders to have money in AA, because he went to Rockefeller for money. This group of people who, outsiders, non-AA people, went to Rockefeller. And Rockefeller said, money will ruin this program. You've got to do it on your own. You've got to do it without money. And they suffered and they went without money. He and Lewis he put up $5,000 to blow them over. And he and Lewis drew $30 a month. Their house was seized. He and Lewis lived in a room at the AA house. The furniture was in hock. But he kept plugging AA. And because of this, we have AA tonight. And because of this man's given up so much so that he could give what he had, we in this room were able to live
and hope by God we can give a little too. Thank you.
The applause tells you better than I can, Bill. Everybody appreciated your message. You did both. You gave the highlights of his life and the things he didn't do. Yeah. I still want credit for the things I do. Oh, Bill said you're not supposed to get credit, you know. Oh, boy, I just love it. And a pat on the back. Father's Day. Oh, Pat, gee, you're great. Sure, I'm great. Everybody's great. Joe, everybody's great, right? Sure we are. And you can't. What are you going to do? You just say you're a louse, that you're no good, that you... I mean, when you go help somebody in a matter of life and death, the only thing is you don't put it in the paper. Now my wife is making faces at me. Sure, we like it. But I'm glad he gave us the anonymity. I'm about as anonymous as, I don't know, Mickey Mouse, I guess. We have with us tonight several members of the Capitol Avenue group. And I think, Ross, you're going to speak for your group? You come on up, please. How old is your group now?
Well, I don't know exactly right at the present time.
It goes
pretty
way
old.
back. That's right.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Ross. I'm an alcoholic through the grace of God and good fellowship as you all. I haven't found it necessary to take a drink today, and I'm doing fine and feeling fine. I've been hearing so much of good talk, I just don't know exactly where to start it. But Bill, I never did know him, but I read a lot about him. I never did see him in person, but from what he did, he's a mighty good man, and he'll always be remembered, because this AA, what they started off, is helping out many thousand people, because it helped me out. It hadn't been for AA, I imagine I'd have been dead. I'm retired from a refinery company, and my heart went bad on me. I didn't have no idea I'd be living at the present moment. But through the grace of God and a good doctor worked on me. At first I was going to a medical doctor, and they used to send for me 2 and 3 times up there on the refinery, and I wasn't doing no better, and they asked me what doctor I was going. I told them I was going to medical doctor. And the doctor said, wait, I'm going to get a car to run you to Dr. Force, a heart special on North Boulevard. And when I started going to him, I couldn't stand up 5 minutes. And I was getting along pretty good, so I thought I could wash the tires on my automobile. I have sat down about 5 or 6 times, lay down across the bed and looked like I was going to pass sure enough. And so I've been kind of stirring around every now and then, and at that particular time, and I've been getting more and more strength. So I had to take a 3-block walk every evening, the doctor told me. And I start on East Boulevard, and man came out, young fella, he said, how you doing, Pops? I said, I'm all right, how are you? He said, you got 2 bits you can give me? I said, no, I don't have no 2 bits. So I made a couple of steps, and something hit my mind, told me to give him 2 bits. So I said, yes, Sonny, I got 2 bits. So I gave him the 2 bits. So I finished up my 3-block walk, and on my way back, same fella, he come out and say, what you say, Pops? I said, all right, how you, son? He said, you got 2 bits you can give me? I said, no, son, I just gave you 2 bits. I said, what you going to do with so many 2 bits? He said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to catch the Greyhound bus. And the Greyhound bus don't stop on East Boulevard. So I checked on this guy, and a couple of fellas told me, say, see that little giant over there? I said, yeah. I said, when he get enough 2 bits, 25 cents, so he goes over there and get him a 5th of wine and lay on the table. And when the man get ready to close up, you got to put him out. And you know, so many things happen. And this is a good program, and it'll help people, you know, who got a drinking problem.
but you got to help yourself. In other words, it help people with other problems too. And when I first came in this program, I had forgot the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. And I was raised up in a house where they didn't drink no liquors. But my uncle, he started me out. I had 5 uncles. All of them drink. And when this brown bummer liquor come out, they started me on that. And I thought I'd stop drinking, but I stopped for a while and I started off again. And I'm doing real good now. I don't even think about a drink. Advertising, it don't even excite me. But I goes out and I try to help drinking people, but you know that's a job. I was telling a man with him and I used to drink, and I told him, I said, "Pal, look like you got a drink problem." I said, "You ought to go along with me." He said, "Where you going?" I said, "AA meeting." He said, "Yeah, you done damn near killed yourself. Now you're trying to run my life." all such things as that. And 2 fellas on the corner. 2 fellas had been drinking a lot of wine, you know. And the people passing by and said, "Do you want to buy a rock?" And people asked him, said, "Where'd you get the rock?" He said, "Off the moon." And I said, "Pal, you know you ain't got no rock off the moon." He said, "I want to get me another drink." And this is a nice program, so I learned the Lord's Prayer, and I'm praying for people, and I'm in church, President Usher Board, and it makes me feel happy. When I got my religion, fellas what I used to hang with on the corner, and I went around and told them, I said, "I got religion." Told them when I was going to get baptized, I could yawn whistle. "Do you reckon you got anything?" Fellas said, "No, he ain't got nothing." So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ross. The applause shows you how everyone loves it. I attended a meeting over at their group on Capitol Avenue. They have a number of meetings. Do you have one of those cards there? They meet at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon on Capitol Avenue at St. Paul's Church. On Wednesday night at St. Francis Xavier. Behind the priest's house, they have a room upstairs. Thanks. And on Friday night, they meet at Immaculate Conception Church out in Scotlandville. And at this meeting, I don't know the exact words that were used, but I was expressing myself like I was a while ago. You know, what a big shot I am, how great I am, and all this, and my wife was frowning at me. And one of the fellas, James, wasn't it? James says, "Ross is just like that." Ross, he didn't get it. He said, Ross said, "No, you mean so-and-so, don't you?" I guess he's pointing at you. He thought it was Gussie, didn't you? And it was you all the time. He just couldn't take it. He said, "You're just like Pat O'Brien." Boy, that's really an insult, isn't it, Jim? We have also, for those, I guess everybody, all the AAs know about Al-Anon, but there may be some here who might not know much about Al-Anon. It meets every Tuesday night here at in that room back in there. Sometimes you can hear them out here, but they also hear us in there. And they meet every Tuesday night, and they use the 12 steps on themselves. They might occasionally tell what a so-and-so their husband is. I don't know. But there's a lady going to speak for the Al-Anon. This lady has suffered a great deal through alcohol. And through AA, I think the rest of her life is going to be happy. And so introduce Jewel. If you want to say your last name, it's okay.
My name is Julie, and I'm a very grateful Al-Anon, and I am the wife of a very grateful wife of a recovered alcoholic. And after having to follow these kind of speakers, I'm real jittery and my knees are knocking. And I could never begin to tell you, because I'm going to tell you something on Pat. He told me I could only have 3 or 5 minutes. And I could never begin to tell you all the things that I would like to tell you tonight about Al-Anon in 3 or 5 minutes. It would take a long, long time. But we are very grateful that you did give us an opportunity to say thank you and to pay tribute to Bill Wilson, a man that we will always love and respect and honor. Love because of the love that he has given us. People like you and people like me. We use your 12 steps. You so graciously let us use these 12 steps. We did not have a program to go by. We knew we had a need. And I am certainly not a very learned person in Al-Anon. I am learning. I am trying to learn. And we use almost the same preamble that you use. And I'm going to read just a tiny bit of it to let you know what we say, that Al-Anon is a family group of a fellowship of relatives and friends of alcoholics who share their experience, strength, and hope in order to solve their common problems of living with an alcoholic and to help others do the same. We believe alcoholism is an illness which can be arrested, and that changed family attitudes can often aid to recovery. Our main slogan is to let go and let God. And I'll tell you briefly what this slogan really means, is for us to let this alcoholic bum that we're worrying about go and worry about his own problems and start worrying about ourselves. I don't mean this in this sense, but we do have a jolly good time sometimes, and you do hear us laugh out here, but we're usually very serious, and we take these steps very seriously. This program means as much to us. It has given us a new life, a new way of living. It means as much to us as it does to the AA members. Though you might not believe this, this is true. And I, for one, would love to see every woman and every man, every boy and every girl that has an alcoholic problem in their home learn something about this program and how it could help them. We took your 12 steps, as I said, by you graciously letting us use them. We changed only one word of them. And this was in your first step. We admitted that we were powerless over an alcoholic instead of alcohol. And when women come in new, and we tell them to let go and let God, they look at us as if they think that we're crazy. That how can they do this? They've been having to take care of this alcoholic for so long, we can't let go. We have people that come in, we see miracles just as you see miracles happen. We have people that come in that have alcoholic spouses that maybe cry for 4 to 6 weeks through a meeting continually. And then they begin to blossom out if they continue to come. And before we know it, they're laughing and smiling as we, and they're happy. They have accomplished something. They have let go and they have let God. And this is what we learn too. As we study these steps, we learn to turn our lives over to God, to a higher power, whom I choose to call God. And we let Him, along with our assistants, lead our lives and guide us to where that we can live a better life, a life of serenity, a life of love, a life of compassion for other people, and a life of happiness. We too learn tolerance and patience and goodwill with our fellow men, even our enemies, because they are sick. I know of no better way that we could continue to dedicate our lives tonight and continue to dedicate the memory of Bill Wilson tonight than to continue his work and to continue to carry the message of AA to all alcoholics and to their loved ones. I thank you.
Jewel, you may be fairly new in it, but you sure have the nut of it. That was great. I was a single man all through my drinking, and I don't know what it's like to be married and a drunk, or to have a wife who is a drunk. But suffering, if there's one keynote, one thing that why we succeed, I think, is love. If there's one keynote, common denominator in this room is suffering. There is no one in this room, either alcoholic or spouse of alcoholic, who doesn't know what suffering is. And I wish, the telephone, I have through the years, it just about drives me, at times it's more than I can possibly stand, is what I hear on my telephone. I haven't experienced it myself. I can only guess what the wife of an alcoholic suffers. I used to think, and I wrote the story of my life for a magazine, and I told about the suffering. My suffering! I don't know about my mother's or my sister's. My wife is talking behind my back. We have a ladies group, and Mickey, if you start walking up here while I tell about you, I don't know a whole lot about Mickey, except that she is an alcoholic, a member of the ladies' women's group of AA. She has been keeping her sobriety. She looks entirely different from the first night I ever saw her.
Thank you, Pat. Nice to hear you, Gene. I am Mickey, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. I don't think there's anyone that could feel more compassion and appreciation for Bill Wilson than I did and do. My first introduction to him was the last time I was in a hospital, and I had heard about this AA book. I had trouble getting the book, and when I finally got a hold of it, I had to turn the cover over, and I read it at night with a light down below my covers so no one would see me reading it. But when I read that book, I believed everything I had read in that, and it gave me some hope. It gave me a lot of hope, because I read in there my story time and again. The suffering I'd gone through mentally, physically, and spiritually. I knew a long time I had always believed in God, but I was asking God to help me out of this plight, and I wasn't getting any answer. I am so grateful to be a part of this group. It's so wonderful that those people gave us these wonderful, wonderful things, these steps, and these people in AA who understand us. When I came into AA, I was firmly convinced that there was an answer here. I've been associated with AA some 4 years. It took me 2 years and 4 months to get on the program. In those 2 years and 4 months, I was searching, trying with all sincerity. I felt that I could, and I couldn't understand it. But apparently I wasn't ready. God has a plan. And if you can remember that patience and asking His will, and when He is ready, He will answer that. I so firmly believe that God does have a plan. I've seen so many miracles worked in AA. People who come in here who have gone through so much more tragedy, so much more hell, so much more suffering. and come out as human beings and still have a mind and a will to do something for themselves. You see, we who are in here and have seen this program work, it gives us such delight to see these people develop as time goes on. We're convinced more and more. It's a wonderful program for us to live by day. I don't understand how people who are not alcoholics face the problems of the day, of each day. Of course, we learn here to live just one day at a time. It has taken me a long, long time to realize that and to do it. But it becomes very easy if we just remember we have only today. And that's what God means in the Lord's Prayer when He says to us, "Give us this day our daily bread." That's all we have to worry about today. It makes it much easier. With the perseverance, the little hope I had, then I began to question whether I was ever going to I like to term it faith. I believed in God. I knew He could perform miracles, but I kept searching and hoping and grasping. I wanted this faith. I wanted something. I'm just now beginning to learn and experience God coming through, because I finally let go and let God. I was still trying to carry on Mickey's will instead of God's will. It is such a relief to have Him help us. If we keep searching, He eventually gives us the answer. I don't say that you don't have problems. You have many problems. But at least you begin to recognize them. You get back into this fear, this self-pity, this resentment. These were things I didn't even recognize within myself. It's only been a couple weeks ago that I realized that I had lived in such fear all my life. And when I first came into this program, I couldn't think of a thing I'd feared. This is what we mean when we say these people whom we love dearly, because they know they've gone down the same road we have. They've done the suffering we've done. And no one knows but we who have gone down that road. But by hearing these people talk, by coming to meetings, we begin to learn. I feel as though I'm just beginning, and for that I am so grateful. I never want to cease growing. I hope to continue to grow. I enjoy the meetings. And if you don't believe God will help you, ask Him. If you don't believe this program works, try it. It's a wonderful way of life. And I thank God many times over. I have to live this program every minute of the day. I thank you all.
It takes real, honest-to-goodness guts and courage for a woman to stand up in AA and talk. To me, this is real, true humility. Mickey, congratulations to you on your success thus far and many, many more years of sobriety. We have a special guest tonight. The format here at the end is going to change. You have a great honor tonight of having 3 state delegates. I don't know whether they consider it as much of an honor as we do, but anyway. We have the state delegate from Shreveport, who lives in Shreveport, was state delegate I don't know what years. He's an old friend of mine. He's been sober almost as long as I have. His brother's been sober longer than I have. In fact, he's soberer than I am. My old friend Watt. Watt, how about it?
you probably won't believe this, but Pat O'Brien, who has been sober slightly less than 100 years, and I were thrown out of the biggest dive in Shreveport. Did we make the jail that night?
No, we didn't.
But anyway, that's before Dora got a hold of him even. Dora, you seen him drunk, hadn't you? Well, so have I. So Pat said he didn't want me to ever die because I'm the only man in AA that can testify to the fact that he was a drunk and drank. And he wanted to fight everybody. The bigger the better. It's indeed an honor to be here with you to share in the memorial services for our beloved Bill. I happen to have known Bill personally. I've been in his home, Stepping Stones, along with some of the other delegates, several times. I couldn't begin to tell you what I think of Bill because it would be inadequate. Bill, and this reminds me of it, lit a flickering light of sobriety with Dr. Bob on June the 10th, Mother's Day, 1935. And they went out and found one more drunk named Bill Dodson. And all three of those first three members of the movement that was to become known as Alcoholics Anonymous lived out their lives without a drink. I could best tell you some thoughts about Bill that was given by a great theologian of our times, Norman Vincent Peale. Along at about the end of World War II, Norman Vincent Peale was on the radio coast to coast, and he would give sermons to help people. And he compiled a book composed of all of these lectures or sermons he had given over the radio. And the name of the book was entitled Being Fit to Live With. In this book was one chapter devoted to our beloved Bill, and I'll try to remember the way it went. He started out like this: I would rather hear my friend Bill W., the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, speak of God than any theologian I have ever known. Bill was a militant agnostic, scorned for religion, hopelessly trapped with alcohol in mind and body and spirit, and in his desperate search for help, he found God. You ought to hear him speak of God. Not thinking he knew very much about it, was just as sure that there's a power greater than we are who can restore us to sanity and sobriety. Thank you.
Our ex-state delegate just finished her term, who has met Bill and Lois. We haven't said very much about Lois, but we're all thinking about her. And this is really a triple finish. Mabel is going to speak, and at the close of her talk, she's going to do something, right? And this, we will all be standing when you do that, right? And after that, Rabbi Reznikov, when we finish with that thing that we're going to do, if you would rise, and as a representative of the Jewish community and the Protestant community, as president of the... No, you're not going to do it, is that?
Representing the Baton Rouge Area Ministerial Association that consists of Catholics, Protestants, and Jews, white and black, humanity.
Okay. That is it. We couldn't finish on a better note. He's president of the Baton Rouge Area Ministerial Association, which is composed of Jewish, Protestant, and Catholic, black and white, ministers of the gospel, and they represent all of humanity. And he will say the benediction. We'll still stay standing, and we have to finish. We know this with the Lord's Prayer. So this is a triple finish. It may be complicated, but I think we can do it. Mabel?
I am an alcoholic, and my name is Mabel Plowler. And I want to thank you, Pat, for getting up this beautiful memorial service for our dear, beloved co-founder, Bill W. I'm awful sad tonight. I think back over when I first came to this program. My sponsor, Nick, gave me the big book and begged me to read it. And after reading the big book, I felt that I knew Bill, but I wanted to see him in person. July 5 years ago, up in Toronto, the International Convention, Hope S. from New Orleans was our delegate, and she came to me and said, Mabel, you've been dying to meet Bill W. If you will slip to the Confederate room at 2 o'clock this afternoon, you will get to see him and hear him talk. But you must promise me that you won't say a word, because if you do, the place will be swamped and there won't be room to hold everybody. So I was real quiet about it, and Bill was talking to the delegates, who were delegates at that time. And I slipped in the room, and what I'll never forget, I've seen so many pictures of the praying hands. And Bill came out behind the podium, and he's tall and handsome, and he looks so godlike. And in talking, he held his hands, and they were beautiful. Cold shivers ran up and down my back. Tears ran down my cheeks. I thought that I was in the presence, I really believe I thought I was in the presence of the Lord as he was when he had his last supper with his disciples. Bill was giving some instructions to the delegates, and oh gee, it was wonderful. I said to Peggy and the girls that I had gone up to Canada with, we can't go home without going by GSO. This probably will be my only opportunity to go to our General Service office, and I want to meet the other members of the staff. So we left Canada and came into New York, and we were there on Tuesday morning when Bill came into the office. We had made a tour of our General Service and met all the staff, and then Bill came in his office. It was wonderful. 11 of us were there to greet him, and when I got round to see Bill and get to shake his hand, instead of shaking his hand, I just fell over and kissed him. I was the only one of the 11, and he said to me, I said, I'm Mabel from down in Louisiana, and he said, well, send this kiss to everyone in Louisiana. And I've been trying to do that. So I had a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that Nick had given me, but I bought another one so Bill could autograph it. And I thought, well, this will be the only chance I'll ever have to see him. God was so good to me. You wonderful people selected me to serve you as your delegate and sent me to New York. And the first trip up there, Bill had fallen. He was working on a tree by his little office where he writes out at his home at Stepping Stones, and had hurt his leg.
so he didn't get to attend all the meetings of the conference. But we did get to see him some. Well, this past April was really wonderful. Bill was in good health. He was taking this treatment for his emphysema, and he spent the full conference time with us. And I was so grateful to God to have the privilege to visit with him and talk with him between our meetings. And I sat by him when we would have lunch, and we talked. We talked on anonymity. We talked about the 12 steps. We talked about the groups. And you know, he said to me, I certainly want to talk about the hereafter. His conversation was simply beautiful. The faith that he had in the hereafter. I wonder now, since I know about Bill's passing, if he had a premonition that probably this was the last conference that he would get to attend. And he had his mind set on a higher plane up in heaven. It was really beautiful. He really gave to me much more faith than I've ever had before concerning the hereafter. When we went down to Miami this year for the International, it was quite a disappointment. We were all grieved over his sudden illness, and he hasn't been well since. Last year at conference, I had the privilege to go out to Stepping Stones. Bill did not get to be out at his home for this lovely reception that Lois gave for the delegates and their wives, the Al-Anons who were up there. It was really wonderful. Their home is so sweet. It's right up on the hill. And Stepping Stones is a proper name for that lovely place. And his little office where he wrote all of his beautiful works. And the best of all, his little book that we have, he did write in this office. And tonight, I want to go back and ask all of you to let's do what we did up in Toronto 5 years ago. This pledge, I am responsible, that you see up there. Some of you maybe have not memorized it. So I will repeat it, and then you repeat after me. I will say part of it, and then you say it. And I want you to stand, and let's all join hands. And when I light this candle, I want Shirley to please turn the lights out. Now, Shirley, let's remember that we want to rededicate our life to the man who has given us all a life. He is not dead. He will live forever. And may God bless his precious wife, Lois. When anyone, anywhere, reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to always be there.
I want the hand of AA to always be there.
And for that, I am responsible.
And for that, I am responsible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Lights
you,
on, Sheriff.
Rabbi Reznikov, please.
You who have enabled us to emerge from 1,000 valleys of the shadow into light triumphant that guides without blinding, bless us and watch over us and over our loved ones wherever they may be. Cause the light of your countenance to shine upon us and be gracious to us. Lift up your countenance to all mankind and grant us all increased good health of body and spirit, understanding that embraces all peoples of the earth, and courage abundant to meet and overcome whatever may be in store, for the precious sake of a Bill Wilson we shall never forget, for the glorious sake of those who are and those who are yet to come.
Thank you, Rabbi. Will you lead us in the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I always have to have the last word. Dan told me to be sure and tell you that he could not come because his mother died and he had to go to Mississippi. And Jake could not come because he was sick, and also Clarence. Thank everybody for coming. Let's have some coffee.